أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So now we're going to go on to a mad followed by a sukoon or a shadda. A mad followed by a sukoon or a shadda. And when it comes to a mad, one of the letters of mad, a waw, a alif or a ya, then it's followed by a sukoon or a shadda. There's three different types. You have the mad al-layyin, a mad of ease. You have the obligatory mad, al-maddul lazim, and you have al-mad al-arid. And when it comes to the middle one, the obligatory mad, it again divides into two categories, kalimi and harfi. Okay, so we're going to go through them inshallah one by one, and we're going to start with al-mad al-arid, the exposed mad. And the exposed mad is when you have a sukoon at the end of a word, but you don't see it. The sukoon is placed by the one who's reading because he's decided to stop. So you don't actually see the sukoon. Normally you see the sukoon, but in this case you won't see the sukoon because the reader has decided to stop there. Because he's decided to stop, naturally, automatically, okay, there's going to be considered, a sukoon is going to be considered to be there. And the requirement for this is that a mad letter has to be present, a waw, an alif or a ya, and then this letter has to be followed by a sukoon as the reader has chosen to stop there. Okay, and this won't be visible, you won't be able to see it, but it's implied because he chose to stop. Okay, and in this case, you can make 2, 4, or 6 counts when it comes to the mad. When it comes to the length of the mad, it can be 2, 4, or 6, and 4 or 6 is preferred. Okay, so for example, if you look here, in the first example, it says, fil bilad. Okay, so you can make it 2, 4, or 6. So on the dal, there's no sukoon. There's no sukoon on the dal. But because he chose to stop there, it takes the place of a sukoon. It takes the place of a sukoon because you choose to stop there. So you can either make it 2, 4, or 6. So you can say fil bilad, or you can say fil bilad, or you can make it 6 counts, make it even longer. So you can say fil bilad. So you can make it even longer. 2, 4, or 6 counts. And 4 or 6 is what's preferred. And also when it comes to the ya, when you have a ya, and then after the ya is the last letter where a person chooses to stop. Ba'du biddin, or ba'du biddin. Or you can even make it longer, 6 counts. Ba'du biddin. So you can make it even longer. 2, 4, or 6 counts. And then the last one, غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ, or غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ, or 6 harakat, غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. So you make it even longer. So in this case, an exposed mad is when the person himself decides to stop at the end of an ayah. Okay? And you have a mad letter before the final letter. Okay, and he chooses to stop there. Okay, so this is an exposed mad, al-mad al-arid, al-mad al-arid. And you'll see some examples of this on the next page. Exposed mad exercise. So you'll see that the letters, they're at the end of an ayah, and it's the letter before the last letter. The letter before the last letter of the ayah. So the letter before the last letter of the ayah will either be a waw, an alif, or a ya. Okay, so for example, in the first example, it's a ya. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. So you can make that 4, or you can make it 2 or 6. Okay, or if, for example, it can be a waw. In the second example, الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. So you can make it 4 or you can make it 6. الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. So you can make it longer. And sometimes when you hear the Imam reciting, you'll notice that the last part of the ayah he'll lengthen. He'll do this. He'll make al-mad al-arid. He'll increase and he'll make the last part of the ayah a bit longer. And there's nothing wrong with this. You can do this. It's allowed for a person to go from 2 counts to 4 counts to 6 counts. Okay? So this is something which is known as exposed mad, and also it can be the alif. So for example, on the other side, the last example, Inna rabbaka labil mirsad. So they increase the mad when it comes to the end. So whenever you have a waw, an alif, or a ya, being the second to last letter before the end of an ayah, then in this case, you can make exposed mad. You can make it 2 counts, 4 counts, or 6 counts. 2 counts, 4 counts, and 6 counts. And preferred is 4 or 6 counts. Okay? So you can it's preferred to make it 4 or 6 counts. So this is the exposed mad. The exposed mad. And don't forget, this is mad followed by a sukoon or a shadda. And the person himself puts the sukoon on there.
When you say the reader chooses to stop, do you mean like physically stop reading at that point, or just actually stop?
No, he stops at the end of the ayah.
And then takes a breath.
Yeah, he stops at the end of the ayah. So for example, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا, and then he carries on. But if he chooses to carry on, okay, then it's a normal mad. How long is a normal mad? 2 counts. So he says وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا, because he carries on. Okay, so if you carry on, then it's a normal 2 mad. But if you choose to stop, then you can make it 4 or 6. If you're going to carry on, you can't make it 6. If you're going to connect the ayah with the second ayah, then you can't make it a 4 or a 6. Yeah, it has to be a 2. Unless you decide to stop. If you decide to stop, then you can make it 4 or 6, or you can make it 2. So this is when it comes to the exposed mad, the mad al-arid, and that was the first category when it came to a mad followed by a sukoon or a shadda. So the person himself puts the sukoon there because he's decided to stop at that part. And then we're going to look at al-mad al-layyin, the mad of ease. The mad of ease. And this occurs when the letter preceding the stop, yani preceding the end, preceding the stop, is a waw or a ya, and then those 2 letters are preceded by a fatha. So you have the last letter. The letter before the last letter is either a waw or a ya. And then before the waw and the ya, there's going to be a fatha. And again, it won't be visible, but because the reader chooses to stop there, okay, he can make it either 2, 4, or 6 counts. And preferred is 4. So like when it came to exposed mad, the preferred amount when it came to exposed mad was 4 or 6. In this case, the mad of ease, the preferred length is 4. The preferred length is 4. And so for example, it says وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ. So you see the kha has a fatha on it. And after the fatha, there's either a waw or a ya. In this case, there's a waw. And then you have the last letter, which is a fa. Okay? So you can either make that 2 counts, 4 counts, or 6 counts. وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ. Or you can make it 6. وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ. So you can make it long. Yeah, you can make it 2, 4, or 6, but preferred is 4. And also, for example, when it comes to the ya, you'll see in the second example, the last letter is a sheen. Before that, there's a ya. Okay? And before the ya, there's a fatha on that letter. There's a fatha before the ya or the wa. So you say, لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ, or لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ, or 6 harakat, لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ. So you can make it longer. You can make it 2, 4, or 6 harakat, 2, 4 or 6 counts, and preferred is 4. So these are the two separate categories that we've done: mad of ease, al-mad al-layyin, and the exposed mad. Al-mad al-layyin and the exposed mad. And then we move on to obligatory mad. Al-mad al-lazim. Al-mad al-lazim. And al-mad al-lazim is divided into two separate categories. Okay? Al-mad al-lazim is divided into harfi and kalimi. Harfi and kalimi. And when we say harfi, al-mad al-lazim, al-harfi, then this means that the obligatory mad is present in the letter itself. Okay, and we'll explain what that means inshallah. And al-mad al-kalimi is the obligatory mad that is present in a word. A mad that's present in a word. And in both cases, it must be elongated and the mad must be 6 counts. Okay, in both cases, the mad has to be 6 counts. So you have a natural mad letter, a waw, an alif or a ya, followed by a sukun or a shadda. Okay? So if you look at, for example, al-mad al-kalimi, an obligatory mad which is kalimi, yani it's in a word. It's in a word. So the requirement is that there has to be a natural mad letter and it has to be followed by a sukun or a shadda. It has to be followed by a sukun or a shadda in a word. Okay, and you have two types. When a shadda follows the mad letter in a word. So for example, the ending of Surah Fatiha. Yeah, it has to be 6 harakat. It has to be 6 counts. Okay, وَلَا-الضَّالِّينَ. Yeah, it has to be 6 counts. And also when it comes to the ya before the noon, again you can make it 2, 4 or 6 counts. Yeah, so they can both be the same length. Yeah, because the ya before the noon we mentioned, you can make that 2, 4 or 6 counts. And in the second example, as-sakha. So you have a shadda after the mad letter. Okay, there's a shadda after the mad letter. And in both cases, you make prolongation and you make it 6 harakat. And also when you have a sukun which follows the mad letter in a word. Okay, kalimi, this is kalimi. So you have a sukun which follows the mad letter in a word. So for example, al-ana. So you make it 6 harakat. Yeah, 6 counts. So this is obligatory mad kalimi. Obligatory mad kalimi, which means that it's in a word. Okay, it's in a word. So first of all, let's go back because this is a lot to take in. Al-mad al-aarid, exposed mad. Okay, exposed mad is a sukun placed on a letter by the reader due to him stopping. So he chooses to stop. You can't actually see the sukun. And because he chooses to stop, he can make 2, 4 or 6 counts. So you have a waw, an alif or a ya, and then after them is the last letter of the ayah. Okay, and so a person, because he chooses to stop, he can make it 2, 4 or 6 counts, and preferred is 4 or 6. Okay, preferred is 4 or 6. We're going to get to that inshallah. We'll get to that. Okay, so in this case, it's 2, 4 or 6 counts. Okay, and there were some examples that we mentioned here. And also, for example, وَلَا-الضَّالِّينَ. The ya before the noon, that's al-mad al-aarid, that's exposed mad. So the first part of wala-dhalin is an obligatory mad because it's kalimi, it's part of the word. So you have to make that long. The second part, the ya before the noon, is exposed mad. Okay, so you have both when it comes to that word. So you have exposed mad, and then we mentioned al-mad al-layyin, which is only waw and ya. It's just waw and ya, there's no alif here. It's just waw and ya before the final letter, and then before the waw and ya you have a fatha. Could be any letter, there has to be a fatha on that letter. Okay, we mentioned 2 examples for those. And then al-mad al-lazim, obligatory mad, we mentioned the first type, al-mad al-kalimi. So you have the mad which is part of the word itself. Okay? And it's either going to be a shadda after the mad, or it's going to be a sukoon which follows the mad letter in the word. Okay? So that's obligatory mad or mad al-kalimi. If you decide, if you decide not to stop, then you just do 2. This is only if you decide to stop. Okay, so al-mad al-layyin wa amanahum min khawf. Okay, this is the last ayah, so you're going to stop there. When it comes to the second example, li'ila fi Quraysh. Okay, if you decide to carry on, it's going to be 2 mad. So you say li'ila fi Qurayshin ila fihim. Okay, so in both cases, al-mad al-layyin and also exposed mad. If you decide to carry on, it's going to be 2. Okay? It's only when you stop. In both cases, it's only when you choose to stop. When you choose to stop, it's going to be 2, 4, or 6 counts. Okay? But generally, it's preferred to stop with each ayah. The Messenger of Allah, ﷺ, whenever he would recite, he would stop at every single ayah. That was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's better to stop at each ayah. It's from the sunnah. Yeah? Okay? So when it comes to obligatory mad, you have kalimi, and then we mentioned the other type, which was what? What was the other type? Harfi. You have obligatory mad kalimi, and you have obligatory mad harfi. Before we go there, here's some more examples for us when it comes to obligatory mad kalimi. And if you look at the first example, you have an obligatory mad kalimi. So you have one of the mad letters followed by a shadda. Okay, so you make it 6 counts. So you say wal janna. So you make it long, you make it 6 counts. And also the second example, inna sharra dawabbi. So you make them long. Okay? Inna alladhina yuhadduna Allah. So you make that long because there's a shadda after the mad letter. Okay? There's a shadda after the mad letter. So that's some examples there for you when it comes to obligatory mad kalimi. Now obligatory mad harfi, when you have a specific letter. Now this refers to the beginning of some surahs. When you have separate letters that don't actually make a word. They don't actually make a word. Okay? And some surahs begin, and these letters are seen lam, qaf, noon, mim, sad, and kaf. So these 7 letters are the letters that a person does the mad on them. Okay? So when we say obligatory mad harfi, these letters have to have a mad on them. So it's not a specific word. That's why it's called al-mad al-lazim al-kalimi. It's kalimi, al-harfi, sorry. It's harfi because it's not a word that the mad is on. Okay, so wala-dallin, it's a word. Ad-dallin are those who are astray. Okay, when it comes to lam and mim, there is letters. It's not a specific word. So in this case, that's why it's called harfi. It's in a letter. So for example, the first one, alif lam mim. In this case, again, it's going to be 6 harakat because we mentioned al-mad al-lazim. Okay, it's going to be 6 counts. Whether it's in a word or whether it's in a letter, it's going to be 6 counts. Okay, the longest that you'll find is 6 counts. You won't find longer than this. So it will be 2 counts. And also, for example, in the second example that we have, Tasin Mim. So it's 6 counts. Okay, so you have the sin and you have the mim. And also, if you look at the third example that we have, Kaf Ha Ya Ayn Sad. So it's 6 counts. Okay? So when it comes to any of these words, whenever they come at the beginning of a surah, these separate letters, then you make it 6 counts. you make it 6 counts. If it's alif lam mim, if it's kaf ha ya ayn sad, if it's ta sin mim, or any other type of letters that come at the beginning, if they have those 7 letters in them, then those specific 7 letters, they have to have a mad on them. You have to have a mad on those specific letters. On the sin, the lam, the qaf, the noon, the mim, the sad, and the kaf. On those 7 letters. And we have some more examples on the next page of obligatory mad, al-mad al-lazim al-harfi. Okay, mad which is in a letter. So for example, Yasin. And if you look at the 4th example, Alif Lam Ra. Okay, and the last example, Alif Lam Mim Ra. Okay, so in this case, those letters are going to be lengthened. 6 harakat, 6 counts for each of those 7 letters that we mentioned. So obligatory mad harfi, when the mad is in the letter itself. And these will come in the middle or in the beginning of a surah. You'll have these at the beginning of a surah. And when it comes to opening letters, when it comes to the opening letters that we have, like alif lam mim, or kaf ha ya ayn sad, or alif lam ra, then these opening letters which don't make a specific word, they fall into 3 categories. Okay, they fall into 3 separate categories. The first one is those requiring compulsory mad. Okay, those requiring compulsory mad that we just done. Okay, the sin, the lam, the qaf, the noon, the mim, the sad, and the kaf. Those 7 letters. Okay, so in that case, it's compulsory mad. You have to make mad lazim. It has to be 6 counts with those letters. Whenever those letters come, they have to be 6 counts. The second type of opening letters that we have are those which have no mad. And that's 1 letter. Which letter? The alif. There's no mad there. You don't need to make a mad. So for example, alif lam mim. There's no mad on the alif. You just pronounce it as alif. You don't need to make a mad on the alif itself. And then the third category are those whose names are made up of 2 letters when we pronounce those letters. And the second letter is an alif. So for example, ha. So when we say ha mim, okay, we don't make the ha long, because the second letter, when we pronounce the ha, is an alif. When we pronounce the letter ha, the second letter when we pronounce it is an alif. The same with ra, the same with ta, the same with ha, and the same with ya. Okay, so when you pronounce these letters, the second letter is an alif. When you pronounce these letters, when you pronounce them, the second letter that you have is going to be an alif. Okay, so any of those letters, ha, ra, ta, ha, and ya, because we pronounce them and the letter after that letter that we're pronouncing is an alif, then you don't make a compulsory mad. It's a normal mad which is 2 counts. Okay, so you don't make it 4 or 6. You don't need to increase it to that length. It's just a normal mad. So for example, Yasin, Hamim, okay, or Ta, Sin, Mim. Yeah, so the Ta is just a normal length. It's a normal mad of 2 counts. You don't need to increase it by 4 or by 6. Okay, so this is when it comes to the opening letters of the obligatory mad al-harfi. We mentioned when it came to the types of mad, a mad which is followed by other things. Yeah, so if you go back to page 29, a mad, the mad types of mad, we had mad followed by a hamza, and a mad followed by a sukun or a shadda, and a mad followed by other things. And when it comes to mad followed by other things, that means when, for example, we have a waw, a ya, or an alif, and we choose to stop there, but it's not the end of an ayah. Okay, so it's a place where you stop. Okay, there might be a sad there might be a jim there, a small sad or a small jim, and you choose to stop there. And if a person chooses to stop there, then he can make that mad. Okay, he can make that mad long if he wishes, 2, 4 or 6 in this case. So that's just the last category, the mad which is followed by other things. Okay, so for example, when you have a mad and then it's the last letter before, there's a place where you choose to stop. But it's not at the end of an ayah. It's not specifically at an end of an ayah, but it might be in the middle of an ayah. A place where you can stop, and in this case, you can make the mad. So, we've now done the whole of the course notes. Is there any questions? Any questions with this? Inshallah, when we do the practical, we'll go through some examples, inshallah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the ayn needs to be there as well. Yeah, so it's actually 8 letters. Yeah, so you need to put that in, jazakallah khair. Yeah, so if you turn to page 38, okay, the obligatory mad harfi, there's also an ayn, which I haven't put there. Jazakallah khair. Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at the last on page 38, the sin, lam, qaf, nun, mim, sad and kaf, there's also an ayn. There's also an ayn, so it's 8 altogether. Jazakallah khair for reminding me. Okay, so for example, in the last example, you have the ayn there. Kaf, ha, ya, ayn, sad. So the ayn is also those letters which a person has to have a mud on them. Okay, it's going to be 6 harakat or 6 counts. Obligatory mad, harfi. Obligatory mad in the letter itself. Okay. Any more questions or any feedback?
You know those little places to stop, sometimes at G, B, what those stand for?
Inshallah, when we go through practical, I'll mention the what they specifically mean, inshallah ta'ala. Okay.
For the opening letters, if they've got this symbol on them, does that mean they're all set, all of them are going to be 6?
Yeah. Yeah, so when they have the mud sign on them, then there's 6 counts.
And then if it's an alif, then it's 1. And then
If it's an alif, it's none. You don't do nothing on the alif. Yeah? And if it's one of those letters that we done, ha, ra, ta, ha, and ya, then it's just 2, it's normal. Yeah, it's normal. Okay. So we finished now the practical. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the course that the theory is just, a small part of it. The most important thing is practical. We have to make sure that we do practical implementation of this. And inshallah, what we're going to do is, starting from tomorrow, we're going to sit down and we're going to just read the Quran. Okay, we're just going to, after looking at all the rules that we've done, we're going to sit down and we're going to go in order. We're going to start with the right, and I'll read Surah Fatiha. We'll start with Al-Fatiha, and everyone's going to read Surah Fatiha, inshallah, just so that we can make sure that we implement the rules. It's one thing learning the theory, but it's a different thing when you have to do the practical. You have to be able to put what you've learned into practice, and that's the best way to be able to improve a person's tajweed. It's just through practice. When you hear the Quran and when you're reciting the Quran. And we mentioned that even during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it wasn't written down. They used to learn it orally. They used to learn the Quran orally, and that was the main medium of transmission. That's how they would memorize the Quran. Okay, by reading it and by practicing it orally. So inshallah, starting from tomorrow, we're going to be doing a proper practical lesson, inshallah, for the remaining days. We'll start with Al-Fatiha and we'll go around and everyone will read Al-Fatiha so that they can improve and they can know what mistakes they're making and how they can improve when it comes to their tajweed and to their recitation of the Quran. Also, inshallah, what's going to happen sometime next week, I'm going to give you like a small exam, okay, just to reinforce what you've studied, okay. It's not going to be anything hardcore or anything, don't worry, inshallah. It's just for you to reinforce what you've studied. And then anyone who does the exam, they'll get a certificate at the end of it as well, inshallah. Okay, just so you know that this person has attended, the course and he partook in the exam. So it's just something to take at the end of the course, inshallah. And what we'll do today with the remaining time is we'll practice the mad. And we'll practice with the mad kalimi on page 37. Mad kalimi on page 37. okay, which is 6 harakat. Okay, so inshallah, if you can just get into groups, and we won't take long on this, and we can just practice when it comes to these separate.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم